Hello everyone, thank you for taking the time to join us today as we share with you more about using CPA method in a STEAM classroom to build a strong foundation in maths. Before we go into the topic proper, let me introduce Marshall Cavendish Education, a global leader providing world-class educational content and learning solutions for schools and education centers. We are the only Asian publisher who is an endorsed partner of the Cambridge Assessment International Board since 2019. MCA's curriculum is progressive and designed with extensive print and digital resources which are interactive, seamless to use and customizable for the different learning standards. Now, let me introduce our first speaker, Dr. Nonghuda Musa, who is a master trainer in mathematics. She will be sharing with you more about building a strong foundation in mathematics with specific reference to the CPA approach. Dr. Huda has over 20 years of experience teaching mathematics in a Singapore school and has been actively championing the use of current mathematics practices in Singapore schools and sharing these practices to teachers locally and internationally. I will also be sharing with you more about how to integrate the CPA approach into a STEAM classroom. For me, I graduated with a postgraduate diploma in education from the National Institute of Education in Singapore. I've also taught for 5 years in a Singapore secondary school. So without further ado, let's get into the topic proper.
When we talk about Singapore Math, our focus is more on conceptual teaching rather than procedural teaching. Now, procedural teaching simply means, for example, you tell the children a certain set of rules or algorithm for them to follow. Conceptual teaching is different, is where the focus of the lesson is on the children learning the concepts and not so much about the ways and how to doing it. And also we focus on mathematical problem solving. Now that's key because in mathematical problem solving, you would have reasoning, critical thinking, creative thinking, flexibility, collaboration, communication, connection. All these things are all embedded in problem solving. So let's take a look at Bloom's taxonomy here, right at the bottom of the screen. What we've done so far is that what we made sure is that the first 3 levels are very significant. Now, don't underestimate the low order thinking skills because they are very, very crucial. They are crucial because they form the basis of any foundation in mathematical learning. So what is the first level here? It's knowing how to count basic numbers, and then knowing what those numbers mean, and then applying it to solve, to add, to be able to subtract, to be able to multiply. So these 3 things are basic skills that the children must have and that we must provide them opportunities to learn and embrace that. Now, once the first 3 levels are achieved, that's when we start moving to the upper levels. All right, so we'll start moving to analyzing. We will get the children to analyze the problem that is at hand. And then we will get them to assess what's going on here. What do I have? What do I need to do? And then from there, we move on to the last part, which is they create something. All right, they put everything that they have assessed, analyzed, and then they create something. It could be in the form of a solution. So this is the Bloom's taxonomy that we strongly follow by. All right. Then the next thing is, what we're going to do today, we're going to take a look at these 4 things. I will show you what CPA is. I'll explain to you what spiral is. And I'll explain to you what problem solving is. And then how we achieve mastery. Now, mastery is really, really important because you don't want to be in a classroom, spend some time with the children to do all these beautiful things and then not achieve mastery, because mastery is the focus. That's the reason why we're doing all of this, to achieve mastery. So the focus is also on mastery. So what we're doing is we're just not knowing how to do it. We are also figuring out why are we doing this? Why are we going through this route? Why are we not just giving them rules and algorithm for them to choose? All right, so when we talk about the 4 things, CPA, spiral curriculum, problem solving, and mastery, we did not create it ourselves. All right, what happened is that we actually borrowed these theologies. They are the ones who came up with all the theories, Brunner, Deans, and Skem. Now, I'm going to talk quite a fair bit on Brunner, and I'm going to talk quite a fair bit on Skem. I'm not going to focus so much on Deans, because I think we've got very little time on our hands for today for the session. So what did we choose from Brunner? Brunner feels that learning comes in three phases. The first phase is the inactive. The inactive is where children actually use things to count, to arrange, to sequence. They must touch it, they must feel it, they must move it. And that's when the learning starts making sense. And the next thing is, once they have finished that inactive stage, that's when they start going on to the next stage, which is the pictorial stage. Now, in the pictorial stage, it's actually very simple. What they have learned in the stage here, the inactive stage, is represented in the pictorial form. That's all. So this is just a recording of what happens here, and the recording is then demonstrated in pictorial form. And once these two are carried out successfully, then the symbolic stage, the abstract stage, will come into play. So what we did was we borrowed Brunner's theory. All right, we use concrete materials, we use pictorial representations, and we finally introduced the abstract symbols. So we call it the concrete pictorial abstract approach. In Singapore, that's what, in your books, that's what we call it, the CPA approach. We don't call it inactive, pictorial, and iconic or abstract. We don't use that. But the idea came from Brunner himself. Now, why do we do this? We do this because some mathematical concepts are really very abstract, and it's not really easy for the child who is like really young, probably 6 or 7 years old, to be able to be doing subtraction or addition with renaming. So what we do is that we give them concrete materials to play with. Now, to them, they're actually playing, but as a teacher, as a facilitator, you're no longer imparting knowledge, you're facilitating knowledge, because the knowledge is then pushed to them to discover. All right. So what you will do is you will have an objective in mind. From that objective in mind, all these activities are laid out for them to try. Now, in that trying, what these children are doing is that they think that they're actually playing unconsciously, and in that play, they will start making some sense. Once the sense making starts kicking in, that's when the aha moment, when I say the aha moment, means that's when, sorry, where's my cursor? That's when the learning part starts kicking in. The learning starts kicking in when everything starts making sense, when things become meaningful. So the first stage, again, is a concrete stage where we use concrete objects to model problems. And then we move them to the pictorial representation, where there are visual representations to help them reenact what happened at the earlier stage. And then that's when we start introducing symbols and numerals. All right. So so Brunner feels that when they are learning through this way, they will need so much of your guidance and your support. So that's fine. Because why? When they start doing this, it's something new for them. So it's always, they're always relying on you. But once they get used to it, once they understand the way of doing it, they understand the concepts, they become more independent. And that's exactly what you want them to be, independent. So all you have to do is just to facilitate the learning. But at the start, the reliance on you as a teacher is really very heavy. But the reliance will then be lesser because the empowerment will go to the children. All right. So how is our CPA unique? Now, there are many concrete pictorial abstracts going around in the world, but why is ours unique? Simply because all three stages occur in one lesson. You don't do concrete today, and then you do pictorial tomorrow, then you do abstract the following day. That doesn't happen here. What happens is that when you do concrete, the children will then immediately remember what happens in the concrete stage and then draw it out in the pictorial form. And that's how the learning supports each other, the two stages. Now, if you leave it to tomorrow, chances are children may forget what they did before, the day before. So what we do is we pack them all together. So the concept that we teach are all in bite sizes so that they can be carried out in one lesson. All right, so we have got the concrete, we've got the pictorial, and this is where we start introducing symbols like numbers, operational signs. All right.
So now let's move on to look at adopting the CPA approach in a STEAM classroom. So first of all, what is STEAM? It is an educational approach that uses science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics to guide students in their inquiry process and to develop their critical thinking skills. A STEAM classroom features student-centered activities that interest the students. So they aren't likely to get sleepy when they're involved in a project-based lesson that asks them to solve a real-world problem. So they're up and moving as they gather materials, they plan, they construct, and they test prototypes. And noise is something that is very natural, it is welcome, it is very normal. Okay, so how do we integrate the CPA approach effectively in a STEAM classroom? Now, one of the key features of the CPA approach, as mentioned by Dr. Huda earlier, is the use of manipulatives and getting the students to experience and handle physical objects. Okay, so through that, they can then make connections and meaning of the math concepts that is trying to be conveyed in the classroom. So these manipulatives could be anything from items in your classrooms like stationery to household items that you could get your students to bring into the classroom like ice cream sticks or candy. So this is bound to interest the students as they engage in hands-on activities. They understand that learning mathematics doesn't simply have to be rote learning where they absorb information in a one-way manner from the teacher. Rather, they can engage and better internalize the concept that are being taught. So get your students to engage in group work. As they communicate and collaborate, they tend to gain a deeper understanding of the subject as well. Right? So do not limit the students and give them the space to explore for more meaningful learning. We hope you found the sharing useful. So before we end off, let me just share with you some of the products and services that Marshall Cavendish Education offers. So under virtual learning and teacher support, we have our MC EduHub, which houses a range of digital products to help support your teaching and learning. We also have Marshall Cavendish Institute, which is a subsidiary of Marshall Cavendish Education, and we offer a range of professional development courses for educators. Okay, additionally, we also have several primary math learning materials, such as our My Pals Are Here math series, as well as our Cambridge Primary Math 2nd edition. For more information, please contact our country manager for Malaysia, Yanni, at the following email address, yannilin@mceducation.com.